There we go. Teddy, can you hear me now? I'm imagining everybody there in the chat going, wait, is it just me? But Teddy, Emily, Neil, okay. There we go. One quick thing, little side note, if you're podcasting, it helps to unmute your microphone. So anyway, well, welcome to, actually that reminds me, I don't have a QuickTime audio recording locally going either. New audio recording. There we go. All right, here we go, the official start. Welcome to episode 72 of The Future Belongs to Creators. Here we are. It is a solo show today. And we're going to be talking about how much you should be giving away for free as a creator. I'm glad that everything is working now. I'm glad that I've got you guys all live to tell me that, exactly, Emily. It's the little things, right? Having audio is actually important. All right. I'd love a little red, yellow, green in the chat. Just let me know how you're doing. It's good to see Teddy, Ken, Emily, Mitchell, everybody, Neil, the whole crew's here. One other thing, I'm streaming with Ecamm today, and it is actually annoying me with these little sound effects. So I'm going to try to figure out how to turn that off. All right. So I want to dive in and talk through one of these topics that comes up all the time. And that is what I believe a lot of people get backwards about building an audience. And basically what I hear coming up is this question of, as a creator, what should I give away and what should I sell, right? And there's a few questions in there. One is the question of, where's this balance, all of that. The other is this fear of, if I give away too much, I won't have anything to sell. What would people even buy from me? I'm here as a creator. I'm here trying to earn a living. And so I need to actually figure out this balance. So let's talk about that. Traditional advice might be, it could be a whole range, right? We could be, let's give them a little taste of something, of what the ultimate product is going to be, and then we're going to sell them it, right? Just a little taste in that. So this might be 10% free, 90% paid. We could probably come up with some great drug dealer analogies on this, right? Of just give them a taste. That's not really what we're doing as creators. We're creating value here, not selling drugs. So we probably want to look a little bit different. And then you might go to more of a traditional model, where you're like, okay, look, I'll give away half of the content and half of what I create for free, and then I'll sell the other half, right? So instead of a 10-90 split, we're at 50-50. What I'm actually going to advocate for is like a 90-10 split the other way. So giving away 90% for free, and then 10% of everything you create is actually paid. We could even go more extreme. Maybe it's 95 free, 10 paid. We're actually have been making this switch with ConvertKit over time, right? Where we were in that give a free trial, give just a taste category early on, right? We had, actually first you had to pay for ConvertKit up front years ago. And then later we added a 14-day trial. And so that's like 10% free, 5% like the taste. And then you have to pay for the product. Later we made it so you didn't need a credit card for that free trial. So we're making it even more accessible. And then over time, what we ended up doing, this year, as you all know, because we've talked about it a million times, is they went with a free version. So now, I don't know, maybe 20%, 30% of the product is free, something like that. And 80, 70, somewhere in there is paid. And we've actually been gradually ramping that up, where first it was free for 100 subscribers, then it was free for 500, and now 1,000. And so we're continuing to add value there because we believe, and this is the biggest takeaway that I want you to have from all of this, is that we believe by giving away more for free, we'll reach far more people. Now you might be going, okay, that's fine. I love the idea of reaching more people. But there can be problems from that. Like something that I've heard, I'm trying to think where this is from. Maybe a magazine author told this to me once, where writers would be told all the time, hey, write this piece for free, put it, out here in this publication for free. You'll get all of the exposure. And their response, which I loved, was people die of exposure. Like, you got to be careful with that. Of course, they're referring to being stuck out in the elements and dying of exposure in that way. But it was interesting. That's the other side of it. If you give away too much for free, you're not going to be able to earn a living from it, right? That's the fear. And I actually ran into this firsthand. It was probably 8 or 9 years ago. I was in Venice with a family back when travel was a thing. And some of my extended family members were really into art history and, the real history of Venice and getting behind the scenes and everything. And so what we decided to do was to book a tour. And the tour was called The Merchant History of Venice. And it was a walking tour around the city, taking you to all these different places. So the Doge's Palace, it's skipping over actually some of the popular places. Like, we didn't go to St. Mark's Cathedral because this was all focused on like the merchant and the business side of it, which as a business person, I was fascinated by. And in that, that tour is where I learned all about Marco Polo. Ended up, if any of you have read Authority, the intro of Authority is centered around Marco Polo, and that came from this tour in Venice. So we took this amazing tour, and being a blogger, content creator, I was like, you should take this content and you should put some of it online. Like, you could build an audience. And he immediately was like, whoa, no. Like, nope, not going to do that. Because if I did that, there would be no reason for someone to take my tour. Or phrased another way, if I give away too much for free, I won't have anything to sell. I'm curious. I'd love to hear in the chat. Is this something that any of you have experienced, something that you've thought about for your own business? How have you wrestled with that? Like, drop those examples in. And so when the tour guide said that, at first I was taken aback because it was something that I held to be true, that he just didn't get. We were communicating in two totally different ways. So I had to close some of that gap. But that first thing that came to my mind is like, well, wait a second. What are we actually doing? His view is that giving away more for free is going to undermine everything that you're getting on the paid version. And so let's break that down, right? If I'm getting the free content, right? I go and read an article or, a series of articles on his blog about the merchant history of Venice. I learn more about this. Then it's like, okay, yep. I've picked up that information. And then in the tour, right, I'm getting the same thing. I'm getting information about the history of Venice. But when you actually start to break it down, you realize they're completely different experiences. And what's actually going to happen is when I read these articles for free online, I'm going to think of him more and more of an expert. And he was a professor at a university. He already had those credentials, but he would start to build that fame and experience to match that. And so what I realized, and what I really tried to get him to realize, and I think I failed, because years later, I don't think he has a blog or anything like that, is that in putting all that content out there for free is actually going to get far more exposure. And then the demand for the tours is actually going to increase. He's going to have more tours booked. He could potentially hire additional tour guides so he's not teaching them all himself, right? A lot more attention, a lot more people reading the free content online is going to give him more exposure, and it's going to result in a lot more people taking tours. And then, of course, all of us know from being in the online world that then we go, oh, and you could take that free content and you could do a deep dive into a paid course, and then you could be making money even when you're not out, guiding 8 Americans through your city. So that's what I was trying to push him to, but I don't think that worked. Well, it would have worked, but he didn't. I don't think I sold him on it. So the first thing, right, we have that concern. If I give away too much, I won't have anything to sell. But here's the other side of it, is there's actually always more to sell. I ran into this just this last week when I was planning out what's going to be, still figuring out the details, but my new course called Art of Newsletters. And I want it to be a deep dive onto how to run a profitable newsletter. I want to do interviews with all the people who have really scaled something, so the Gretchen Rubins, James Clears, David Perel's, all of those of the world who have scaled a massive newsletter, and we can all learn from that. And so I was thinking, should it all be paid behind the scenes, like as part of this course? Or should I release it as a podcast and, maybe make this content more accessible, get the reach out to more people? But then it becomes a little blurry of what's free and what's paid. And ultimately what I came to, and I was talking through this with Sean McCabe on Friday, is the same lesson that I've said plenty of times over and over again, but it's easy advice to give and hard advice to take. And that's that if you give a ton away, there's always more that you can sell. And so what I'm going to do is be releasing those episodes, or releasing that content as podcast episodes. And then later on figuring out, okay, what's the version of this? What's the training that I can put into a paid version? So with that, people are going to consume content in a lot of different forms. And so you could say, put out these blog posts totally for free, and then it could be largely the same content that you end up later in a paid product. So as you're starting out, let's say you've got 500 subscribers or 1,000 subscribers, and you're thinking, okay, if I give away all of this for free, there's nothing left to sell. What you'll find is the more content you create, the more content there is to create. Like, you get even more ideas and everything, like it builds on itself. And then the other thing is that your experience and knowledge will mature over time, and you'll come up with these new ideas, or even your audience will surface those things. So one of my favorite authors that I read online years ago, and he's now a good friend, is Patrick McKenzie. And he has this blog at calzumius.com. If you just Google Patio 11, he'll come up. He's a great writer, puts out these really detailed posts. And he used to do a lot of consulting on conversion rate optimization and all of these, business problems. And he had this great line that I always enjoyed, where he would say, look, a lot of my consulting is just the same content that's available for free on my website. I'm just like basically doing a narrated reading for you. It's the same advice. It's exactly what to do. But these companies would be thrilled to pay him, $10,000 per consulting session and all of this for him to walk them through taking his advice that he'd put out for free for anybody and putting it into practice directly in their business. And that was something that, he was happy to do. So the free content drove the demand, it got people excited, and then the consulting is how he actually paid the bills and made money. And then he ended up, that's living at two extremes, right? Totally free and then very expensive. And then later he ended up doing a paid course. He did his video course. It was sort of that in-between price point. I think he charged $1,000 for it. And that was like all the high-level lessons from consulting, but brought to that practical online course setting. So Patrick also has this other line that I've always loved, and this is where he talks about selling to businesses, right? Because as creators, we tend to think about other creators like us. I was teaching how to design iPhone applications, and I think about like other freelance designers who might have more time than they have money. And so like, is anyone really going to buy that when it's free out there on the internet? And Patrick has this line where he says, look, think about the finance person at a software company or any kind of company. No one there wants to write a payroll check, and in the memo line, write out researching free stuff on the internet. That's what this course is for, or this paycheck is for. And that's when you realize that, wait, free content isn't free because it actually costs that time. And so that's where, as you start to think about, okay, what could I sell? It starts to get interesting. So where do you draw that line between something that's free and what you're actually going to sell? And what I do is I think individual topics are totally released for free. So if I'm doing a deep dive on, maybe I'm trying to think of a good example, but maybe if we run with iOS, app design. If I did like, hey, what's new in iOS 10 or, any of those things, right? That's going to be totally free. Or if I do a design principles thing, that's going to be free. And you have these individual topics. But then on the paid products, like anything where I'm going like A to Z, here's a complete guide to do this. I'm going to save you from doing all of this research yourself. And I'm going to give you just the best practices. That's something that's going to be paid. So, a great example here, this is from years ago, but a well-known engineer named Thomas Fuchs. So any developers would know him. He was one of the first people to pioneer drag and drop on the internet, all this stuff. And his wife is Amy Hoy, who runs Stacking the Bricks and other things. Now, when iOS first came out with Retina images, I don't even know what year that was, right? Everyone was kind of scrambling and writing blog posts and doing research and trying to piece together, okay, what do you do? How do you get images to show up on regular devices and on Retina devices? And how do you do all of that? And I was one of those people, like trying to figure this whole thing out. And one thing that I found is that it was really hard and confusing. And I'd piece together like information from 8 different blog posts. But what I really wanted was someone to just come in and say, do this. This is exactly like, I did all the research for you. This is the definitive guide. Just A, B, and C, do this. And that's what Thomas did. I can't remember the name of the product, but it was basically the complete guide to Retina images. It wasn't even that long. And part of the selling point was that it was short. He could cut through all the noise and just say, I did all the research for you. Do exactly this. So things that I charge for would be, complete guides, deep dives, anything that guides you through the whole process with the mindset that clarity and brevity are totally selling points of not having to wade through everything and just having someone tell you, here's step 1, step 2, step 3. That is totally worth it. The other thing that I would say is to switch media types. So if you've been putting out a lot of great content in the form of, say, written blog posts, well, then maybe go and do a workshop or go and do a video course. So 2 examples that come to mind here. One is James Clear, who for a long time he did just free content. He went so far into I'm just going to give away everything for free. Right, he had his absolute best writing there. That it was just for free every Monday and Thursday. Now, he needed to pay his bills in some way, and so what he did is he said, "Okay, once a quarter, I'm going to do a habits workshop," and that's when he would actually sell something. It wasn't this thing that he had to spend a ton of time creating, but it was this live workshop on developing better habits, and he would sell that to his newsletter. It sold well. He could have made far more money with other things, but it sold well enough that he could, run his whole business and focus more on releasing more content for free. Now, another example would be Farnham Street. So you can check Shane's stuff out at fs.blog. And Shane has done, again, tons of incredible free content, a great focus on the newsletter. But then he has really gone the other way, and or in addition to that, he's taken that content and built it into a paid course that's on Teachable, and he really went, okay, I'm all in on free text content, but the video content we're doing on a paid platform. So think about those things. Overall, my advice is go all in on free, right? As much as you can afford to. It's a longer path to earning money from it, but the ceiling is so much higher and you can build your audience so much larger if you really focus on free content and then use that to grow the audience. And then as you discover more of these things, as you learn more, then you can go in more on paid. All right, I'm going to take a look at a few of these comments. Yeah, Teddy's saying, I used to be nervous about repacking blog posts into an ebook, even though we give it away, the ebook away for free too, because I thought people would be like, dude, this is already on the blog. Okay, one quick thing. People do say that, this is already on the blog, what's going on? And you will get that message every so often. I've had it in some cases. But I will say that is a great strategy of taking this old content and packaging it up in ebooks, either free or paid. I did a free one years ago called The Productivity Manifesto. And it's everything that I'd written on productivity. I did illustrations with it. I bundled it up into a nicely designed PDF, released that for free. And some people were like, I've read half of this already, or I think one person said they'd read all of it already because it had been different posts over the years. But most people thought it was brand new. Most people hadn't found those posts from the archives, and they were thrilled to have something that was so easy to refer back to and so easy to give away. So that was an example of free to package nicely and free. But the other thing that happens is as you go free to paid, just put that in there that, you know exactly where the content is from, and maybe you get someone saying, oh, I could have just read some of this for free and I'll go tackle that elsewhere. But refund requests are really easy to handle. And the majority of people will be so thankful that you gave them step-by-step, clear, concise, edited content on what they're trying to learn. Okay. So Philip brings up at 20 million plus ARR, I'm sure the course as content marketing for ConvertKit will generate far more revenue than it would as a paid course. And that's basically the assumption that I'm making as well, is that instead of making money off of the content, I'm going to use that to elevate the brand, provide more training, get more people on the platform, and then, actually make money from selling the subscription business. All right, Brian says, for teaching products, one, on free, give everything away, and paid, convert the information into action for them. Make it so easy to do it, it's nearly impossible to not get the end result. Oh man, I love this. And Brian, everything that you've done with growth tools and both the software products and the coaching and all of that is spot on. Because basically what you're doing is you're saying, this is all of the research. This is all of the information, the stories, right? That's what does so well with free content in order to attract attention. And then on the other side, the paid content is 100% about outcomes, right? If you're like, here's how to go research and learn way more about this, that's not going to do super well as a paid training or anything like that. But if you're like, this will help you achieve this outcome, and all of your copy, all of your sales pitches, everything focuses on that, then you're going to have a much easier time selling and be in a great position. Going back to the example from Patrick McKenzie, that's exactly what he's doing, of saying, here's all the research, here's everything that you want, and you can go create that outcome yourself. Oh, on the other side, you want me to create the outcome for you? Great. That will cost $10,000. That will cost this other thing. So that's the world there. Overall, go all in on free, promote that, scale that, and then as you need to, you'll find more of these things, more of these outcomes that you can look for on the paid side. I think that's some good content. Let's see. I guess Barrett's not here, so creator of the day. Is that a good Barrett impression? Let me know in the chat. Does that work? Okay. My creator of the day is Dr. Zubin Damania. Let me see. I'm using a different tool, so let me see if I can screen share. I don't know that I can. I'll drop the link in the chat. He is at ZDogMD, dog with 2 G's. And so, actually, I'm going to try slightly harder to screen share. This might screen. I don't know. Nope, I can't figure it out in this. That's okay. All right, so there's 2 points that I want to make in featuring ZDog. One is, we haven't talked about the coronavirus in a little while on this show, but it's still very much alive and well, as you all know. And there's this whole video, or not a video, there's all this other all this content that came out over the weekend as people talked about the death rate for the coronavirus being at 6%. Basically, the CDC released all of these different, all the death certificates, about 100,000 of them. And there were only 6% exclusively named COVID-19 as the cause of death. All the others had all these comorbidities. And so what I thought was interesting is I came across a video that I'll link to in the chat now, and that's from ZDoggMD. And actually, my uncle, who is an internal medicine doctor and has been for, 35 years, is the one that shared the video. But it basically breaks down how everyone being upset that, like, oh, the cause of death isn't actually from COVID is complete nonsense and completely incredible. And so that was interesting to dive in and learn about that. But then also, I started following his content, and it turns out he makes these music videos. He's got talking shows. Anyway, I thought it was great. The quality of production I thought was really good. And so it was definitely worth checking out. The other thing that I really wanted to use him as an example on is when you get into content like this, what you're going to find is that you don't agree with everything that the person says. And so that brought up some really interesting points of, like, he reaches some conclusions, for example, on COVID that I don't necessarily agree with. And what I realized is how often are we curating our audiences and our feeds, down to who we agree with and who we want to pay attention to. And I realized that's going to be a narrower and narrower of the mindset. So specifically, who are the people that you follow because you disagree with them and they expand your mindset and they're challenging your beliefs, versus who are the people who are just reinforcing what you already believe and pushing you further down that path? Especially who are the people who are thoughtful on that side. Actually, if you want to drop any in the chat of someone that you follow because you disagree with them, I would love to see some examples there. So anyway, I thought that Dr. Zubin Damania was a great example there. Check him out, zdoggmd.com. And you can see all his other video content as well. All right, my resource of the day is a book called The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker. And, as everyone's putting together online workshops or planning, like, hey, when we can host dinners again, when we can have groups, together, when we can gather again, how should we do it? This is a book that is really good about setting intent for those gatherings and getting the most out of it. And so I've really, really been enjoying it. I've been listening to the audiobook, which is fantastic. And so check it out, The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker. All right. Well, that's it for the show today. The last thought that I want to leave you with is give more away and make it really high quality. You don't want to give away your average quality stuff and save your best stuff for the paid products. Instead, you want to set a really high bar, continue to deliver at a great level of quality, and then through that, dig deeper and find, okay, where can I do these paid products? But don't get too caught up in, if I give this away for free, then I won't have anything to sell. Because time and again, with all these creators, I've seen that there's always more that you can sell. And so default to generosity, give it all away for free, and then the audience will grow from it, and you'll have so many more options and potential going forward. That's it for today. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you on Friday.